Hello, you guys, and welcome to Miami in my home at another episode of the Not Date Your Wife, the Danielle K White Show. Jeez, I'm like, I got too many podcasts. Today, I actually have a good friend of mine, but also an expert in, I would say, the fitness industry. We have Alyssa Rose Montgomery. I want to say like Mrs. Montgomery. Welcome to the house. Welcome to the White House.
Thank you, Mrs. White. It's a pleasure being here.
I walked down this morning. We're friends, so we might be a little bit chaotic on the show, but that's okay. But I walked down. We're literally like wearing like the same outfits. I was like, okay, we're vibing today.
Yeah, we're on the same level.
We're on the
Ms.
same
Danielle.
level. We've got it's because we did glutes on Friday.
Yeah.
So now we can sync up.
We're workout buddies. Our husbands work together, so we get to hang.
We get to hang.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Danielle K White. Welcome to the Danielle K White Show. On this podcast, what you can expect is anything from fashion, fitness, hair, and yes, even family. I'm the creator of Natural Beater Real Hair Extensions and Isla Hand-Tied Hair. But what I'm really passionate about is sharing other people's stories, how they went from the pit to the peak, how entrepreneurs build the success that you see online today. So definitely tune into this podcast for a good story and a little bit of fashion and a little bit of hair and beauty mixed in.
So it was so crazy. Carter actually, I think he sent Garrett a DM. And when you're in the fitness space, when people are doing things that you feel like is maybe incorrect, you want to like help them lovingly, right? So
Totally.
he sends Garrett, because Garrett started getting into bodybuilding, and he sent Garrett just like a DM and was like, dude, do you have like a coach? And he's like, yeah, but he only had a coach that was like helping him lift who was like 60 years old, I swear. He's like this old, fit, like 60-year-old dude, but it's fine. And he's like, no, do you have somebody helping you with like your nutrition and stuff? And he's just thinking, yeah, chicken and rice, like
And rice cakes.
yeah. And then literally Carter's like, no, let me help you. So anyways, they ended up connecting and working together. And then Garrett's like, come do a show with me. And I had done 3 shows and I was like, I don't really care. Like I kind of did it after my babies to like get back in shape and motivate me. But then I was like, okay, be fun to do one with Garrett. So then he's like, why don't you have Alyssa help you with your posing? I was like, wait, his wife competes? So I had no idea. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then I started following you. And then we met in a very vulnerable space with just my ass out and my bikini.
Yeah.
Tell me which way to turn.
FaceTime.
Yeah, over
we like
FaceTime.
texted a few times before that.
Right.
I
I was like, there's no warm up into the
yeah,
relationship.
we
I
like
was just
liked each other's like pictures on social media, and it's like, all right.
Okay.
Face the back. Okay,
perfect.
Perk your glutes up.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. But it honestly, like, it did help me in my posing and all that. But then it's crazy. We didn't know you guys were originally from. You're not originally from here. Where are you originally from?
From Southern California. So I grew up in Rancho Palos Verdes. Carter moved out to Temecula, California, which is like Riverside, North County, San Diego area.
Is that where you guys met?
We met in San Diego.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Are you originally is that where your families are?
So I grew up in Rancho Palos Verdes. It's just outside of LA.
Okay.
Kind of near like Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach. So I grew up going to the areas that you lived in OC.
Okay.
And then I went to San Diego for college, and then that's where I got into like the fitness world and competing, and that's how Carter and I met. And then 2 years ago, we moved to Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, we didn't meet you guys till you were here, but then it's funny that we're now all
us
we're all
Californians.
living here. Okay, so let's start back at the beginning because I feel like you and Carter are just like nerdy smart, in a good way. You know what I mean? But I feel like a lot of people ask me fitness advice, and I'm like, hey, I did these shows, but I'm not an expert. Like I can give you advice based on what worked for me, but even then I'm like, I don't want to give somebody bad advice. Maybe I shouldn't be giving advice. So I always say with like a grain of salt, like I'm not a professional, and I always recommend like if you're looking for results, this is going to sound really, really bad, but don't just follow the fitness influencers. Like actually seek out a professional.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't just copy someone else's plan and expect the same result.
Yes. And there's so many people there's a difference between an actual expert and somebody who's just like, I like to work out. And so people will try to like follow advice from somebody who like me, maybe I'm like, I like to work out, but I'm like, really, I think you should hire like a professional. So how old were you when you went down this path of like bodybuilding? Like how did it all start? What kind of crazy person wants to do that?
Yeah. Well, crazy because I did it so young and Carter did too. And I think that's why we were able to learn so much in a short period of time and be where we are now to elevate and help others on their fitness journey.
Right.
And what you just said is literally the reason why we coach people is because there's so much misinformation out there. And just because someone looks good, especially in the competing realm, like they're like, IFBB Pro next to their name. They're like, oh, they must know everything. Yeah, they can get me in shape, but then they just mess everyone up like hormonally, or people even mess people up with food and exercise. So we're like, we're going to be doing like a disservice to the world if we're not helping people get the right information.
And share it. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's like our passion and purpose behind why we help people, just getting the right information in people's hands and also getting people results. So I started competing and prepping for a show when I was 18, a freshman in college.
Oh, wow.
But my like background of why I even started working out and lifting weights is because I was like an athlete my whole life. I stopped playing soccer, had to work to drive and, fund my life, grow up, be responsible. And I was like, what do you do to exercise? Like, how do you change your body? And I thought it was like running at first. And I got really, really small, but I didn't have any like shape or tone. Were you looking for
that shape? Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I need like body composition. So I started weight training. And I remember being so nervous going into the gym in college. And I was like, oh, there's all these like jack dudes in the gym and, they're doing like barbell stuff. And I'm over
you're like
here.
This tiny little thing. You're like, yeah.
And so that winter break, I like went back, taught myself everything. And I was studying hospitality at the time with hotel management. That's the industry I was already working in since I was 16 and like high-end resorts. But all I did in my free time was
work out.
And work out and research nutrition and training because I was like, I want to see real results. Like, how do I do it? And then I just started seeking out the information myself and I became really obsessed. But what pushed me into competing, I didn't even know it was a thing. I was just like, bodybuilding, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I didn't know it was like a women's thing.
Well, back then, like, they're not, I know competitions are totally different now. So when you got into it, I don't feel like it was probably as big as it is now. You know what I mean? It wasn't
like social media too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because social media really blew everything up. So it's like what you learned about bodybuilding, competing was just from your local gym and maybe some magazines or like a friend's friend did something, but she's like 50 years old, women's bodybuilder.
Some random DVD. Yeah. I had all like the Jillian Michaels DVDs and all that. It's like, that's all I knew.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just this passion to really just find the correct information and go into that right place. So what really pushed me to compete was I was going through this health adversity at the time. So I was already really into weight training, loved the changes of my body. I finally understood that portion of how to actually get the results was through heavy weight training. But then I was still involved in the hospitality realm of everything that I was doing. And I came back from this conference and I had all these little spots starting to grow on my body. They were super itchy. I had no idea what was going on. I saw like 4 or 5 different doctors. I was mistreated and misdiagnosed. I was thrown around the ringer. And then I finally got a referral to dermatology and got the right help. And I was like, ma'am, is it this? Is it that? And meanwhile, I have just spots literally like head to toes, like super itchy. I felt terrible and people were staring at me and asking me what was wrong with me. And it was just like a really dark time at my life. I was like 19 years old, finally on my own, trying to like figure myself out as a young woman. And I kind of always struggled with body image growing up. So I was like, oh, I finally have this like cute little body that I was looking for because I grew up with a lot of girls that are like naturally really thin, tall, volleyball players, super pretty. And I was actually bullied growing up for having strong legs because I was a soccer player, like really, really mean kid stuff. So I was like finally feeling confident in myself. And then I had this crazy skin disorder.
Oh, wow.
And the doctor looked at me in my eyes. She's like, no, honey, like it's not any of that. Like, I'm so sorry. You have an incurable skin disease. It's called guttate psoriasis.
Oh, wow.
And then you just hear pounding in your head, incurable skin disease, incurable skin disease. So I went through that journey of just having to like rediscover who I am and like also accept that in order for me to continue on with my life and actually live my life, because all I wanted to do was hide, was to own my thoughts around it and start changing my language. And the moment that I started looking myself in the mirror with like love and compassion again is when the spots started to fade.
Oh, wow.
Because I was failing different medications and the doctor told me, this is the last one I can give you.
Oh, wow.
You can't be on it for a long time. You only have a year. And so I didn't know anything about manifesting then.
Was there like a stress trigger that maybe like how it developed, or were you stressed at that time in your life, or?
No. So technically what they say is that it can form from untreated strep throat. And because I was living in the dorms and my like roommate was going out and partying and all that stuff, it can go undetected when you get it so many times. And that's how they say that it's created, because it's an autoimmune disease.
Oh, wow.
So technically it can go into like remission, but I was up at like 4 a.m. before school started, getting like light therapy treatments 3 times a week, like driving myself to the doctors. I like just moved out, like living away from home, and like a super lonely journey. But the one thing I really felt like I can focus on and control was exercising my body. And I was like, this is the only thing that I have that brings me peace, that I feel like I have control over. And then that's when I decided, I remember making like a Facebook post, you know, because you announce everything on social media. And I told my story, and I said, I'm not going to allow this to control me. So what I'm going to do instead is prep for a bikini competition, and I will get on stage whether or not I have spots or not. And I gave myself a year.
Oh, wow.
So it was just that really pushed me into that, like going through that struggle of having to like reclaim my identity again.
Yeah.
And then because of that, I just stepped into this world that went through its own challenges again. And that was just like the beginning.
How did it go away? You just kind of like spoke positivity and it started to fade out and just eventually kind of went away?
I just really believed in that medication. And then I just really
that's right. She said, this is the last one I can give you.
Yeah, and you can only be on it for a year. And I said I have a year to change all my thoughts around myself. And so it was the affirmations, the love, the compassion, the health. And I think just looking at my body in a more positive light again, and showing myself that I'm capable of doing it. Because this wasn't the first time I had a really crazy health adversity that had happened to me. A year prior to that, like a month or so before I graduated high school, I had this weird gum thing going on, and it was like this big red bump, and I was like, it's not going away. Like, I'm gonna go make an appointment. I was like a very mature high school student. And they did like an x-ray, and there's like this big black space in my gums. And then he was like, you need to go to this person like immediately the next day. And then I didn't know I was going in for surgery because they had to do a biopsy.
Think it was cancer? Or?
Yeah. So they said this is probably a tumor, and then it takes a few weeks. I had to get all these testings done, and that was a 2-year process. So it ended up being a super rare.
You did have a tumor. Is it Garrett had it's called an ameloblastoma in his mouth, but he let it spread too long, and he was playing football, and this is a crazy story, but he got hit really hard in the jaw, and then he went to go to like a barbecue that night, bit into a thing of corn, and all of his teeth ripped out.
Oh my!
But he had a tumor, but he let it like spread. But so they found it. Sounds like they found it pretty early.
Yeah, and it was super similar to what that would have been for me.
Wow!
Because it started dissolving all the like bone and roots. So even though it was benign, it was super aggressive.
Yeah, that's what Garrett's was.
And they're like, you were like maybe a couple weeks away from your jaw concaving.
Oh wow!
And I'm like, 17 years old, like what did I just
because it
hear?
moves fast. Yeah, that's
super
crazy.
Aggressive. And so I had like 3 teeth removed and like this hole in my mouth like a week before my 18th birthday in prom. It's like, oh, this young woman's going to be ushered off into like the real world, and this is like your big moment. But I remember seeing my mom being sad, and I was like, I don't want to be sad because that's going to make her more sad. Like, I'm
like
just
sad for you.
Yeah. I'm just going to let everyone else handle it. Like the doctors, the nurses, like I feel like I'm in good hands. I'm just going to trust everyone, and I know I'm going to be okay.
Right.
And it's because of how I responded to that in the past that I look back at that and I was like, wow, I really admire my 17-year-old self that took that adversity and turned it into something else. So it's going back through that situation, it just started to really mold my mindset. And I think as you will hear these patterns that I've been through, it's like God has given me these lessons in body of adversity to teach me that, one, like nothing is actually yours. You can be at like the peak pinnacle of your success and something can change it.
Right.
So you have to practice letting go. And my mission in life is to help women like overcome whatever they have been through to like reclaim their identity again, because it's who you become after that.
It's crazy because when I jumped into bikini competitions, I got so much like negativity around it. They were just like, I've had friends do that. Like, why would you do that? Like, very few people said anything positive about it. But the reason I decided to do it for me was it was after my 3rd baby. I developed a DVT, and I didn't know that was like life threatening when you're pregnant. So my brain was like freaking out. Like I was like, oh my God, like I have three kids. Like I have this DVT. I ended up getting preeclampsia. I gained almost 70 pounds and I'm 5'3". And I remember like everything was fine. I had the baby, obviously we had her early and everything. But I remember looking in the mirror and feeling like in a way, like it was like death is at the door at some level, you know what I mean? So it kind of scared me, put perspective on life. And I remember just looking in the mirror and I didn't even recognize myself because I'd never been overweight. And just looking in the mirror, I'm like, what in the world? And I remember in that moment, I just decided, I don't accept this. And it wasn't necessarily about like, it was just about like transforming myself and let's see what I could do. And so I jumped into competitions to really educate myself because in my early 20s, I didn't know what I was doing. I was the same thing as you. I was just like, I couldn't figure out how to get a bigger bum and like a cute little waist. And I literally was like, I got like too thin. And then I was like, well, this isn't what I wanted, you know? And I didn't know. And so it was in that moment that I was like, I need to educate myself and figure out what I can actually do instead of like settling with like, well, this is where I'm at now in life, you know? And so I think when you make that decision for yourself or whatever it is, then that's when you truly transform the mind. So when you did your first competition, it had it all cleared up and everything was good by the time you got on stage?
So it's crazy because I feel like I was being tested. Everything was pretty much completely clear. And then that week I had a few little spots on my legs, but I reminded myself that the reason I started is because I told myself I would do it regardless.
No matter what, yeah.
And I think it's for like God to like help me say like I did it no matter what, and I said it, and I said I was going to do it.
Then you follow through.
Yeah, and there's women that have reached out to me and are like, you like helped me get on stage when I had this as well or something similar, because the hardest part for me was I didn't know anyone that had the psoriasis before. I never even heard of it. And then you like open yourself up into this big community of people.
And more people start talking.
Exactly.
But I think it's important to share your story. I think a lot of people, they just see the highlight reel. And you're like, well, let me tell you how I got to the highlight reel. You know, and I think that every story to success almost has kind of like a dark side to it that people don't see. But that's why it's good that you share this, and it opens up to a bigger community and that kind of thing. So then you go in, you do your first competition, it went well, and then were you obsessed or what? Where did it go from? Because you went pro, didn't you go all the way and get your pro card and everything? I don't know how it works because you're in a different category than I was.
So I started in bikini because there was only figure, and that wasn't really like my body goals.
Yeah.
But the struggle for me again was just being small enough. So then I went through a period of like, I have to get smaller.
Yeah.
So I tried the bikini competitions like 2-3 more times. So over a course of like 3 years. And then the wellness division was announced in 2019 to start in 2020. But I had learned about it when I first started competing.
2020?
Yeah. So it was overseas in like Brazil and different South American countries where like women with like bigger glutes and legs or like just more like that's like their normal
anatomy.
Exactly.
Right.
So I was always waiting for this since I started competing because I had like a coach at the time that worked with like military people overseas, and he was like, you'd be great for the wellness division. I'm like, that's great, but
I live here. Yeah.
It doesn't exist. Yeah. And I want to, be an IFBB pro. It's like the most elite thing that there is. So I had like made a promise to myself after that first show that I was going to get my pro card and like make it to the top. That was just, I'm a very extreme person when it comes to my goals. And so from that day forward, I was like, okay, I'm going to act like a pro. Like everything that I'm going to do is going to be for this. And then I ended up changing my path to go from hotel management to fitness coaching and helping women.
Oh, okay.
Because that's all I really cared about. Yeah. And then everyone always asked me for help. And I was like, okay, I really need to learn, excuse me. I really need to know how to learn how to help people properly because I was kind of thrown through the ringer.
False information. Did you ever have like somebody who helped you coach you through all that? Or were you just kind of researching and finding out on your own?
So I had coaches in the beginning and I honestly learned what not to do. So I was thrown through the ringer. And I've
heard that in just like my last trainer was a bikini pro, and she like was young when she started, like early 20s, and like she's like, they would like have me take this or do this, and she's like, it kind of like fucked me up, she's like, but I didn't know. And so she's like kind of similar, she's like wants to make sure that women do it like properly. So
exactly.
It's like when you were going through that, what do you feel like what were the mistakes, like what do you feel like went wrong?
I think ultimately it was just understanding how, well, okay. A lot of coaches just want to collect checks and have as many clients as they want. So they don't really care about like the mental component of getting someone on stage, like how to properly prepare someone for that, of what you're going to go through. So a lot of women and men end up developing like disordered eating.
I know.
Lots of body dysmorphia. Right. And I didn't realize that until after, because everyone was too embarrassed to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to talk about this because
I feel like none of the pros talk about it really.
No, they want everyone to think they just look great and are perfect 24/7 and they just post their best pictures on Instagram.
And there's a lot of judgment behind it too, because I'm like the pros, I'm like, they don't look like that. It's not even possible nor healthy, you know? So it's almost like embracing the kind of the off season look, but I bet a lot of them struggle with it like internally, because you look at these pictures and you're like, wow, that's incredible. And so, but it's like important for people to understand, like you can't be that dehydrated like all the time.
Exactly. So, and especially females being like sub 10% body fat is just
it's
not healthy.
Exactly.
Like it causes a lot of hormone disruptions and it ends up changing like the chemical breakdown of your brain. And that's why people do suffer depression and just anxiety. All these different like mental debilitations that happen from prep, and then throw anabolics and steroids and PEDs into the mix, and they literally change the brain chemistry. And I think a lot of coaches just give women and men, like they throw the kitchen sink at them, like take this and that. And then it ends up totally changing women. And that's why I backed away from the wellness division specifically, because they promoted it as like curvy, feminine, like strong lower bodies. Of course you had to get to low body fat.
But it seemed more like normal. It didn't seem like so
masculine.
Depleted. Softer. Softer.
And now they're at a point where like these women are literally on protocols that are like similar to men. Like someone transitioning into like a transgender.
Wow.
Like you will see it. Like their voices are a lot deeper. Like their
even
faces.
bikini does not look the same at all. Like there was a point where I wanted to go pro, and because I started in 2020, and I started to watch like the bikini pros' bodies changed, and I was like, they are all on something. And now it's like flipped from being like kind of feminine to like not feminine anymore, at least for what my goals were. So I kind of like gave up that idea of like, I need to go pro, you know. I just like, I don't really want to take my body through that, you know. I'm happy with my local shows at first place.
Exactly. And so what happens is these athletes create those divisions. So from the top down, all the divisions across the board, as soon as somebody starts bringing that really hard, dried physique that's only achievable with anabolics, it's the new standard. So when I got my pro card, I was the first American to go pro in 2020.
Oh, wow.
So I helped shape the women's division for wellness, which was super awesome because they didn't really know what technically they wanted yet. But then all these women from overseas who have been taking anabolics since they were like 18 and they're like 32 now.
Now they're coming over here and this changed the game again.
Exactly. So that's kind of what happens. And that's why bodybuilding itself is super taboo. That's why it's never going to be televised. That's why Gatorade and Nike are never going to sponsor it. Because they can't talk about those things. Like,
the dark side.
My protein shakes got me this look.
Lots of chickens. That's how I got here. It's important for people to understand that, because it's funny because women will be like, well, I don't want to get bulky, and I'm like, I'm sorry, do you know, when I'm prepping, I'm like, even I'm like, I can't get enough protein in. I'm like, it's so much, women need to understand, it's so hard to actually get bulky. Like, and now, like you said, a lot of them are on, what is it called?
We just call it PEDs, physique enhancing drugs.
Okay, because I've heard people be like, I'm on peptides. Now I'm like, what is a peptide? What is, you know what I mean? I'm like, it's such a general term. So like, talk about it. What does it do? Is it just make it like alter your hormones, or?
So there's different compounds that you can take. Peptides are more amino acid derivatives. So if you use a peptide, it's basically telling your body to create more of something. Okay. So it's more optimized. So the peptide route is more like mainstream. You can go get things at like wellness clinics. Like anyone can kind of get prescribed those things now. Now when it comes to anabolics, those are basically changing your hormones specifically. Like you're basically taking an exogenous form of that hormone. So for example, actually testosterone is like that, or any type of hormone replacement therapy is like that. So if, for example, a man who is just like a general like lifestyle person and he just wants to feel good, be able to like have a healthy sex drive, and
then they'll typically go on testosterone.
Yeah. So the same thing happens for women too. They can take testosterone just at lower amounts, and then they'll take like progesterone and estrogen. You have to think about it like this too. Birth control is also another form of like a hormone replacement in a sense. You're basically manipulating your hormones through taking something like that. So there's that level of things, and then there's like
hardcore,
the like black market, like illegal like drugs that they use for. Basically, like, okay, so men will go on this compound called Tren that's literally made for cows to get bigger.
Ew.
It's so bad. It's like so gross.
So basically, if you're going to use any kind of performance enhancing drugs, don't go black market.
No.
Probably not a good idea.
Well, just do your due diligence and do your research and hire a professional that actually understands how to use compounds, but also like understand what your actual goals are. Like, what do you actually need to achieve your physique? And that's why we just focus on hormone optimization and just making sure that your internal system is firing on all cylinders and is optimized to lose weight, have better brain function, have better sex drive, build muscle, recover better. So
I've heard a lot of women that they're like, I need to go on testosterone to lose weight. And I'm like, why? Like they're like, oh, I've tried everything and I'm just kind of stuck. And I'm like, how does testosterone affect that? I even at one point asked my doctor about it. I'm like, how are my levels? Do I need testosterone? He's like, no. And he's like, it'll do more. He said it would do more harm than it would good for me. And I didn't know why. I just was like, okay, based on like what my levels were at. I was like, but why do some women take testosterone, just like depending on where they're at?
So basically we want the levels to be at an optimized level in order to yield results quicker, but also in like an efficient time period, because a woman's like optimal range for testosterone, I'd say on the low end is 35 optimally, and then on like the higher end 45. So you kind of want to be within that range.
Okay.
The body stops being able to function properly when the levels are a lot lower, like a 12 or like a 2. So that's probably why a woman isn't losing fat, or she's not recovering because she's not recovering properly. So
sense.
You can have a 10-hour night of sleep every single night
and you're still exhausted.
And still feel exhausted.
Yeah.
And some people can choose to, like women who go through menopause, or usually their hormones are downregulated.
Right.
Actually, that's exactly what's happening. So for them, it's like, okay, you can either accept that as your reality and be okay with that, or you can go the route where you're not experiencing the symptoms of menopause. And that's what hormone replacement therapy does.
The only thing I tried, I don't even know what it was. I took something, it was a peptide. I don't know what it was. It didn't do anything. And then I tried Anavar for literally 3 weeks and I hated it. I felt like I was like emotionally all over the place. And I felt like I was holding onto a lot of water, and I was like, never mind, I'm out. But even like things like that, like Garrett was on Anavar for like a little bit, and now he's on all sorts of stuff. But I think it's like important, like if you're just some random person that's like, you need to go to a professional, like you said, and it's like, okay, here's where like what I'm lacking here. So I'm feeling these are my goals. And then even monitoring it, like Garrett's on all sorts of shit and he's very open about it. What's crazy though is he's always like, but people think that if you take enhancing drugs or anything that it's like a quick fix. And he's like, I'm lifting every single day and I meal prep, and it's like, it's just kind of an enhancement.
A great example of that is like there's a man, take an overweight man who's on testosterone. Does he have like sick muscles and is super lean and shredded and looks sexy? No, he's still overweight.
Right.
So it's the same thing. Like you have to take a look at your nutrition and training first, and being able to have a plan that's actually like dialed in. Like you have to have a macro goal. If you're building muscle or losing fat, like there needs to be data behind that.
Right.
Same with your workout plan. Like you have to follow a set plan for a period amount of time and focus on progressive overload. You have to have a set movement and cardio goal. So all of these factors do play a role in you being able to make progress, but we start there first. That's foundational. It's like you shouldn't be looking at any of that stuff.
No, if your goal is you're like, I need to lose 10 pounds, you're like, well, let's dial in your diet and your workouts and kind of go from there.
Exactly.
But I've learned a lot like going through this whole journey, and I think it's like fun to kind of play with body composition. Like I'm like, oh, I lost a little muscle, now I'm gonna put back on, and it's for me, I like feel like I've never gotten to a really like obsessive place about it. It's always been like somewhat fun, but I'm very conservative. Like I said, like I tried Anavar one time and then I was like, no, thank you. Like not for me. So for a lot of, do you coach primarily females right now?
Yeah, I coach all the females.
So when you were going through all this, and did you find that you were like at a young age, were your hormones affected by any of the things you were taking? Did you talk to me about that?
So I was on the side of things where I had a really bad coach who was like, hey, you need to like get your levels tested. And at the time, like blood work was so buzzy, it still is, but people didn't actually understand that, but they made themselves look like a more edified coach because they brought blood work into the mix. Because after these preps, your hormones are going to get down regulated, where you're taking enhancements or not, just through losing body fat and being in like a hard cut for like a certain period of time. So the goal is to get your body back to like a healthy baseline. And going through different preps, not having coaches, you learn the hard way, right? Not having coaches that actually help you through this post-show process.
Yeah, that's where they like the refeed and all that. That's where I've seen a lot of women, they get like super depressed, and you're like, oh, my coach that I hired at the time, he was like, you need to be very careful with your refeed. And so I feel like my first show I followed what he said, and it went really well for me. Now, my last show I did not do a very good refeed, and I was like, but then I realized it threw off my hormones and everything. I was like, okay, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, through any post-diet phase, everyone thinks it ends with the diet. Like, ooh, got the hot body, awesome. I don't have to eat, chicken and rice anymore.
Yeah, no.
Is you have to go through a reverse diet process, where you're like allowing the body to adapt to a higher calorie range and controlling that fat gain that happens. So you don't want to like raise calories too high, because then you'll gain unnecessary and unwanted fat. But the reason why people go through this post-show blues and depression is, well, yeah, you just had everything about what you did was for that one day on stage.
Yes, exactly.
So the high comes down because the glitter's gone.
Yeah.
And then there's also like an actual chemical reaction happening in your brain, because your body fat's so low. Like you probably get like prep brain, where you realize that you can't really like make decisions clearly.
Right, you're foggy.
Yeah, foggy brain.
Yeah.
So it's like the low body fat levels and being depleted and being under replenished. So once you start eating more food, you start feeling a little better again.
Yeah.
But then you're like, oh, I'm gaining all the fat because I don't have a proper reverse diet. So now you're like mourning your body, and it's
right. And then
you're
very
in this cyclical.
Weird, yeah. Well, and even women that have not like been in competitions or anything like that, it's like they'll do really good on their diet, and then they like stop, and they think they can go right back, or they try 75 hard or something like this, and then they stop, and then they gain it back plus more, and you're like, well, yeah, you can't just like quit everything that you're doing and go from eating like perfect macros to like pizza and donuts.
And doing like 75 hard workouts twice a day and eating super clean.
Yeah. So
that's
it's like,
why
and
you
it's
can't
fun.
do an extreme diet.
Well, and it's like, even like Bailey was like, I'm going to do 75 hard. And she's like 2 days in, she's like, never mind. But I'm like, I don't encourage that, because I'm like, number one, it's similar. Like when you do a show, you have to expect like, oh, I did it. And it's important to have a goal, but then being realistic with your expectations of like, I'm not going to work out twice a day for the rest of my life, and I'm not going to eat this perfect, and I probably won't get in my gallon of water every day. So like finding that balance. How did you find balance for yourself when you're like coming down off these shows? Like talk about, like, because there is like a dark place for anybody who wants to compete, even if you're not a pro. Like they're like all the girls that I have talked to, they've really struggled with this.
It's because they don't own the lifestyle aspect of being a healthy and fit person. Because if you were to give this person this body, never put them on stage, they would be the happiest women in the world.
Yeah, right.
But you get on stage and you're like, you're not good enough. You get, even if you get first place, you still don't feel amazing. You really do lack the fulfillment, and that's why people like chase shows. It's because they don't know how to like live in the lifestyle setting outside of that.
Right.
Because one, either like their coach doesn't prepare them for that, or they just don't understand the difference, and they think that that's the only way that you can be healthy, fit, and sexy and have this body.
Yeah.
So for me, like my goal, once I went through the post-show phase of like breaking up with competing and retiring from the professional level of things, I understood that I now had to like find this new balance for myself. But what happened to me is, going back to like having crappy coaches, is this coach hooked me up with a wellness clinic, and they prescribed me testosterone and a thyroid medication. The thyroid medication was like fine. Like I actually needed that. The testosterone levels at the time, I probably could have gotten them up naturally with some supplementation and giving it time, but they want to make a
quick
buck
fix,
and like prescribe me something, because I'll be a patient for life at this point. And they never monitored my dosage and levels properly, and I didn't really understand. I wasn't a doctor, right? I didn't really understand. I was only 21, 22 at the time, and they had my testosterone levels way too high.
Oh wow.
And I was experiencing these terrible like side effects, and at that point of my competing career, if I was to just come off of everything, I wouldn't have been able to like achieve what I needed to achieve with competing in fitness anymore.
Right.
So I had to make that decision that I'm okay with the goals that I achieved. I did really well. I got top call outs at my pro debut. I was super happy with that. Got the first American who went pro in wellness title. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be on the Olympia stage. Like, I will break up with that goal. That was my big dream. And I had to go on this healing journey. And so I had to like come off the testosterone, see where my levels were at. And then I was experiencing all this depression because my brain chemistry
was
all messed up. Because of the low testosterone levels, and I was super sleepy. I had no motivation to like work out as hard, and plus I was like, I don't need to work out like that. I don't want to look like that. Like, oh, those women look like men now. You know, I just kind of hated bodybuilding. So I had to refine my balance again and figure out which way I wanted to work out, having like a better relationship or a perspective around like nutrition and food, because I basically was on a chronic diet from age 17 to 25.
Yeah. So when did you, let's see, I always forget you're still in your 20s.
I'm 20, I'll be 29 in June. Yeah.
So when this was probably like, what year was this that you were like, I'm going to break up with that old version of me and find like my new set of happiness?
That was 2021.
Oh, okay. So that was like only a year after you
went pro.
Yeah.
So I basically had to let go of my dreams at like the pinnacle and peak of just the beginning of my career.
Yeah, just the start. You were like, I don't want to go down. But you know what? Good for you for like recognizing like it gets dark and being like, I don't want that for me, you know? And really, like you said, retraining your brain to a healthy space where you like love your body and you love yourself again, you know? And you're like, I don't, that's not my goal anymore. So then from there, is that when you kind of started, were you're already teaching people and coaching people and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I had been coaching women like a lifestyle setting since college, and I went all in on my business. I graduated college early and then decided that was my path, that I really wanted to help women. Like, that's where I felt really fulfilled. I just wanted to make a difference. And then going through my competing journey and not having qualified or educated coaches, going again back to like, just because someone looks good doesn't mean they know what they're doing. Carter and I connected then, and he's had his very own similar journey as far as like competing super young and learning about things really young, going pro and reaching his peak pinnacle at a really young age at like 22. So we were like very aligned on our paths.
Right.
We were just friends at the time. And then I said, hey, like all these women that are like coming to me in wellness are getting messed up. And so we decided then that we were going to help women. We stepped away from coaching people for competitions and really just focus on the women. Lifestyle setting now. But that was just our calling to like be able to lean in and help and make a difference with others and making sure that they get the correct information because of what I had went through. And that post-show phase of like having to go through the down regulation process of my hormones.
Yeah, when did you go through, because you had been posting recently how like you ended up gaining all this weight and then recently kind of got back to like where you feel like this is like your healthy space to be at. Was that just going off of the competitions and like the weight gain and that kind of thing?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, eating more, moving less, like not tracking my food and not being in like a calorie, not having like a calorie goal. Like I gained the weight over time, but also having like the hormone deregulation.
Right.
And then I went through experience where I got a cancer diagnosis from my breast implants called BIALCL.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, which is this rare lymphoma, another rare thing. I'm just so special, right?
We all learn a certain way.
But what I learned from all of that was that I had created this version of what I thought success in fitness and body and beauty was in my head. And it was someone else's standard because it was that stage standard. So I had to like completely burn that version of myself to the ground and go through another rebirth process. And had I not gone through that, I wouldn't have come home to my like true body and find like what actually I value as fit, healthy, feminine, and beautiful, and like being okay with just being myself, like without all those enhancements and being on stage, without the boobs, like what everyone else thought that I should have been and what I thought I should have been, because that's what I chose my standard to
But then when you look at where you're at mentally in that place, you have to like realize like that might be their standard, might look perfect, but mentally if you're like not in a good space, that's like prison, right?
Exactly.
You're like, I don't want to live in this space. It's funny for me, like I like being little. Like I just realized like I like being little. And so after my last show, I was like so obsessed with keeping the muscle, and then I like went through this phase where I just stopped lifting and I like lost size, but I was okay with it. I was like, I don't care. You know, I feel like petite and little. Now I'm like going through a phase where I'm like, okay, now I need to build back up, you know, kind of like playing around with it. But so after you started coaching women, did you and Carter, were you dating then? Or
So we started dating in 2020.
okay.
And then he was coaching on his side and I was coaching on my side. And then he was also like managing a gym and helping people in that realm. And I was like, hey, you should leave your job and come work with me and let's do something together, like online. And like, I really think we could help a lot of people and like make a really big difference. So that's when we started working together and putting our heads together and building Ascension Fitness, where now we operate at a level where we're helping like high level men and women who live high level lives and helping them optimize their hormones and health so they can perform in their business and their marriage and have better like work life image and just like building a brand, because now everything's about building a brand. So I realized my calling for all of this is just to help women like really reclaim their identity, because when I went through this weight gain process, I felt so like unworthy and uncredible, because I was like, well, I had this super dope physique, but now I'm like feeling thicker and not really like sexy. And I like didn't want to be seen. So it really pulled me away from like my business at the time of like posting on social media or being next to my husband. And I feel like I noticed a lot of women who live like high level lives do the same things if they don't feel confident in their body.
All of a sudden they like disappear. You're like, oh, where'd they go? Where'd Danielle go? I haven't seen her in 6 months now. But it's true, because you don't feel like yourself. And what people don't understand is like, when you don't feel good, you get kind of in a slump. You get a little bit like you like stop posting, you stop caring, and it can be like very dark and isolating. But the reality is like for me, what works for me is like I always say, don't go too far off the path. You know what I mean? Like I like my vacations and my weekends and things like that. But like I almost get scared of like if I get too far off the path, like all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, it's like starting over again. So I feel like there's such something to be said about consistency, you know, and like kind of getting back there. So once you kind of how did you lose the weight? You just went back, you know what to do. You were just like, okay, so did you just get back in your routines and kind of make it like a conscious effort to kind of, you're like, I don't accept this version of me. Not even necessarily like how you look, but how you're feeling and operating in the world is like, that's not the real Alyssa.
Exactly.
So you kind of made that shift and then you know what to do. So did you just like get back on like better meal prep and fitness and just get back on a routine?
So for me, it's like finally someone reaches their breaking point. There was a point where it's like, okay, all these things were out of my control, but then it got to the point where I was being a victim. And I was like, girl, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is not you. This is not how you operate. I was like super negative. I'm like this super like bubbly, positive person that it's like, no, we're going to work on our affirmations and talk positively to ourselves. And I was like, I'm not being authentic. I can't coach women this way mentally. So it was just that mindset shift of waking up and being like, I'm done. I'm at my breaking point. And it was getting back on an actual plan. But to me, it was breaking up with the idea that I had to be on this super restrictive diet from competing, which is the
new
only
goal.
I was like, girl, you can like go on date night twice a week. Like I love to travel. We love to go on weekend trips or 2-week trips out of the country or into Hawaii. And I was like, you can have the hot body, still enjoy the traveling, still enjoy the food and do all of this. And that's when it comes down to, like you said, the consistency overall and actually like following like a macro based plan and learning how to like be flexible with your nutrition with having some sort of like restriction around that. So it was following a more macro based flexible dieting approach, still having a plan in place, but knowing how to travel, enjoy, have the date nights and continue to make progress. And that's what I teach women. I'm like, that's all women want. Like the competing's amazing. It's super challenging, but what women are after is like the actual body. Like that's what they feel good. So I'm like, I'm going to teach women to have that like next level elite physique and feel super sexy and confident, but like also enjoy their life doing it.
And not feel like you have to diet all the time.
Exactly. It's like,
I always feel like for me, like if depends on what my goal is, right? Like if after a baby and I have to lose weight, I might like not like have as much fun on the weekends. I'd still go out, but I might just order grilled chicken and something very simple. Versus like once I hit like my kind of like my goal weight or whatever it is, then I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go straight from eating like great macros to now eating, like I said, pizza and donuts. But also it's like flexible. Like I'm like, okay, I can have fun on the weekends because I'm not trying to necessarily, like I'm at my goal weight, you know? So I'm like, I'm not necessarily trying to do much, but it just depends on like what women's goals are. Do you take this approach, like if they're trying to transform their body or lose weight or whatever, do you just teach them? It almost sounds like you're teaching them more like a maintainable way instead of like a quick fix. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I like getting results efficiently and quickly. So I customize a plan to like your food preferences, like what your lifestyle is, what you actually like, but their needs for fat loss, for example, like fat loss is super quick. Growing muscle is a much slower process. Yeah. That's why you can't get bulky.
Yeah.
You just have to lose the fat. That's why people look bulky.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the muscle. So it's like, hey, let's lean in on being more disciplined. We're still going to be consistent overall. You have to understand the difference between like, I can be flexible, but I can't be lenient because then you're going to get results super slow and you're going to give up. So it's like leaning into that discipline period of losing the body fat, which can happen super quickly. So I like to give people like time blocks with their goals. Like, all right, in 12 weeks, we're going to be here. And then we get to that. I'm like, okay, another 12 weeks, we're going to be here. So when you give people little like short-term goals that will get them to their long-term goal, it helps them stay on track.
More. You're like, I'm not going to tell you like 6 months out. We're just going to look at the next 3 months.
Yes. And they're like, okay, like
I can do that. I can do that.
Exactly. Yeah. But if like, hey, you have 50 pounds to lose. So where we're going to look at in like a year from now, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is like a really long process. So it's like leaning into like the time frames of that and understanding where you need to be more disciplined because it's not forever. Like if people just actually focused on the time frame of losing fat.
I love that you just said it's not forever because like I said, after having 4 kids, I was like, hey, there's a time period. I know that I need to drop this weight. So I'm going to be disciplined. And I would do something similar. I'd be like, hey, I don't have any vacations planned. So I'm going to like be really, really good. And I would like, you know, do my macros perfect for like 3 months. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go to Mexico. And I still maybe wasn't at my goal body, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to go have fun in Mexico because I've already put in 3 months of work and you can't undo 3 months of work in 1 week. And so then it almost helped me keep going. So then I had like, that was like my reward. I'd have my weekend in Mexico or whatever with Garrett. And then I'd be like, okay, now I just need to get back on track. And it's so interesting. That was like one of the things that I learned is like, you can go have fun. And that doesn't mean like on Monday, you got to go do a cleanse. No. And I think a lot of women like feel guilty or their body's like retaining water. So then they're like, well, I'm just going on a 72-hour cleanse. And for me, I'm like, no, I'm just going to get back on like eating good and eating healthy. And I'm not in Mexico anymore. So I'm not going to have chips and guac every other meal, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, that like, I approached it like similar, kind of just on my own, knowing that if I was trying to hit a long-term goal, if I was consistent, you know, for, you know, 2-3 months, then I had a little leeway. And now it's like I said, I eat pretty good during the week. And then the weekends, I'm like, we're going to go out to eat and I might have a dessert or a cocktail or whatever, you know. But for me, it's like, it's a healthy place mentally to be because I went through a space where it was after one of my shows where like I wouldn't even go out to dinner or friends would call and be like, do you want to go out to dinner? And I was like, I would turn down everybody because I was like worried. I'd be like, oh, I can't control what I'm eating if I go out to dinner. And then I was like, well, that's stupid. I have to like not be social because I'm worried about having a bite of a brownie or something, you know, or having a margarita. And so I was like, that's stupid. Now I feel like I'm in prison. And so I feel like women, they tend to get in that space. And so that's why I think it's important to hire a coach, not number one, like to give you a plan, but also the accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the coach is going to say, hey girl, like you just had margs and you know, carne asada in Mexico. Right. So you're going to be a little watery.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just get back to our plan. And people will go to the extremes after these things. And you have to realize like date nights are still a normal thing. Like trips to Mexico aren't going anywhere. Like you'll continue to go on trips to Mexico. And it's not about being so extreme. And I love to teach women how to break up with yo-yo dieting. And
I know
these cycles.
I am, like I said, in my early 20s, I went through a little bit of like the yo-yoing, but I didn't know. And I just was like obsessed with this outcome that I was doing all the wrong things for. Like I was like, I wanted like the cute, like petite but curvy look. And I was like depleting myself and then starving, then binging. And then I was like on the outside I looked cute, but like mentally I was like in prison. And I was like, I refuse
to. Obsessive.
Yeah. I was like, I don't want to be obsessed. I want to be able to like live my life and not like be like thinking about the food the whole time, or thinking about like, oh my God, now I got to go run 12 miles because I went out with my girlfriends last night or whatever. I refuse to live in that space of guilt. I found that that's like such a prison. So if women wanted to come coach with you, where can they find more information, or what kind of programs do you have right now?
Yeah, so everything is completely customized to the women and men that we coach. So it's really just about having like a consultation, learning where you're at now, what your history is, what your goals are, and like coming up with like a realistic game plan that works for you, making sure that we're optimized internally so that the external, from the mindset to the hormones to the body, can do its job. But they can connect with me on Instagram, like at Alyssa Rose Wellness. We have a website there, all our super awesome transformations and men and women that we've helped. But yeah, it's really just about sitting down, getting clear on your goals, figuring out what's not working, and recreating that mindset around it.
Right. So it's Alyssa Rose
Wellness at Alyssa Rose Wellness.
And you do anything from like, is it like everything from like giving them their workouts to nutrition, like all of it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything's customized, from their nutrition plan, their workouts, their cardio, their step goal. Yeah.
So you guys, if you want, honestly, like you do consultations too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if you guys are listening to this podcast and you're like, you know what, I'm kind of in a place where either mentally, physically, I don't like the way I look, and you want guidance and you want help, I definitely recommend a coach. Like if you're resonating with anything that we're talking about on the show, DM Alyssa. Like, she's nice. I promise. She's super friendly.
Shoot me a message. Let's chat it up, girl.
Yeah. Like, just see if it's a fit, or see if, I always say, like, entertain a conversation, and then you'll know if you can help them based on what their goals are. And I'm sure there's some people that you're like, I can't help you. You're like way off the deep end. Like, let's get you riled back in. But I would say go ahead and DM her if you're listening to the show and anything resonates with you and you want change in your body or your mindset, so you can ultimately feel like your best self. So thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm like, I feel like we could have kept going, but I'm like, sometimes I'll be like, this has been an hour and a half podcast. Like, we'll have you come back. We'll be like part 2 with Alyssa Rose.
Yes.
All right, you guys. If again, I ask one thing of this show: if you found some value in it, share with your friends. If you have a friend that you're like, yeah, my friend might need help with this, maybe you guys could join her program together. So share this show up, and thank you guys for watching, listening. Follow her on social media, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the Danielle K White Show.